From the studios of Blackwater Media in the city of Atlanta, it's time for Swamp Chat, and I'm your host, Dr. William Lester. I want to welcome everybody. It's a rainy Saturday here in the ATL, and I'm here. I've got my pipe, I've got my coffee, I've got some of the College World Series on right now. I think, who is this? Ole Miss in Arkansas, all right? So it's a fantastic weekend. I wanted to get back with you guys and catch you up on news and notes pertaining to Blackwater Media. Pick up where we left off from last week. I know I dropped some information on you. And so where we are now a week later is, again, we are looking at, as I said last week, there is an existing Blackwater Media website, but it's going through this evolutionary period where things are being tweaked and turned around, and I'm looking at some new design concepts, some color schemes and what have you. And so that's very much underway. Looking at that process of developing a username and password system for people who become Blackwater Media Swamp Hunters premium content members. And I'm also developing some new content, some new stories. Some of them are in the writing phase. In fact, most of them are in the writing phase right now. There's several, and I was looking at some of the material on my laptop before I started recording, and there were a couple of stories that I'd even forgotten about that are going to be just fun, entertaining, creepy as hell stories. Of course, there's going to be some Bigfoot stories. There are dogman stories, of course, and other strange creature stories. This, I kind of put in the category of, all the other crazy ass stuff that's out there. There's a story I have called the Insectoid, which is crazy creepy. And a story that is going to be called, the working title right now is The Thing in the Garden. And if that maybe sounds like a nice, pleasant thing, believe me when I tell you, it isn't. Okay? So those are the things that, story-wise, and there are many others. There's some I just want to spring on you as a surprise because they're so damn insane. See what else is going on. There's going to be a return of a show, and I'm not sure if I should really even be bringing this up or letting the cat out of the bag on this. So there's something that I was involved in show-wise a few years ago that was very exciting, very popular, lots of fun to do. And it kind of went away just because of some of the nonsense and the bullshit that kind of happens in this industry when you start getting lots of attention, lots of followers, lots of subscribers, lots of likes. But what I'm speaking of is something that will be coming back. It will be resurrected. In fact, I had a person on YouTube ask me about this particular project. And excuse me while I sip some coffee. And I answered in the affirmative that yes, it's going to be coming back. And I spoke recently with the other individual, the colleague who's involved, and they were very much gung-ho for it. So just kind of stay tuned, because this particular project will absolutely be a part of that Blackwater Media Swamp Hunters premium content package. This is something that premium content members are going to have access to. They're going to love it. We're going to preview it out in the public, maybe on YouTube, or as free content on the Blackwater Media website. We'll preview it with a free version, and then, people will make the decision as to whether or not it merits them becoming premium content members. And one of the things that came up on the internet during the week, it was, well, how much is premium content membership cost? Well, it's Blackwater Media is going to require what is the standard going rate in today's market for premium content digital entertainment, and it's $4.99 a month. It's going to be easy as pie. You pay $4.99 a month, username, password, access to the premium content page on the Blackwater Media website. And it's that simple. And like I said, what does $4.99 get you now? I mean, does it get you one of those ridiculous lattes or those crazy ass iced coffee things at Starbucks? I don't know. But I mean, just think about that. For the price of one of those, can you sacrifice one of those per month for a guaranteed return on your dollar entertainment investment? Because I realize there's a lot of material. There's a lot of ways you can spend your money entertainment wise. And I know you have choices. That's why what Blackwater Media is going to be offering to its premium content members is the highest quality level of digital audio entertainment. Paranormal, horror, science fiction, super creepy, and even more creepy, and scary as hell. It's the highest quality, highest value. So that's what's going to happen. Now, there's some other things I want to tell you, but what I want to do for you now, and I should have thought of last week, is give you guys something to listen to as an example of Blackwater Media material. And this is a story, one of the older stories, I guess from like a year or so ago. And this story is called Virginia Bigfoot Scare. So check it out. I was camping in the Shenandoah Mountains in Rockingham County, Virginia. The date was October 2017. It was nice fall weather, so I decided to go out for the weekend. When I arrived, a local ranger pointed out a hiking trail for me to follow. After a hike over the mountain, there was a nice area of flat ground near a stream that was perfect for camping. I hiked a few miles to get to the bottom of the trail. I set up camp, ate dinner, and crawled into my tent. Around 12:30 a.m., I heard a noise outside of my tent that literally scared the hell out of me. I sat upright and listened to the sounds. Soon after, I could hear rocks falling just outside of the tent. By the direction in which the rocks fell, I figured that someone was throwing the rocks downhill from the mountain, but that was over 100 yards away. I slowly crawled out of the tent and peered out into the darkness. The area was extremely dark, and I could barely see my own hands right in front of my face. Then suddenly, I heard heavy footsteps nearby, which were getting closer. I scrambled back into the tent and reached into my pack in order to grab my .44 Magnum. I pointed the gun at the ground in the opposite direction of the footsteps and then let off a round. The footsteps stopped, but I did hear a faint rustling sound going away from me. I quickly reached into the tent and grabbed my sleeping bag. I found a nearby tree and propped myself against it, the Magnum still in my hand. I dozed on and off, frightened at what had occurred. It started to become light, but my nerves were still on edge. I didn't wait around long enough to take down the tent. I had at least a 2-hour hike ahead of me, and I wanted to get out of that area as soon as possible. I started my way up the trail. It was rocky and a slight incline in the beginning. I was about an hour up the mountain when I began to hear the same strange noises I had heard the night before. I picked up my pace until I reached the peak. As I made my way to the top, I saw that there was another lower peak on my left, around 150 yards away. there stood a hairy, human-like figure looking directly at me. I knew that the creature was a Bigfoot. It was massive, at least 8 feet in height. I was so goddamn scared I started to run. At the same time, the beast let out a terrible scream that echoed in the valley below. It didn't attempt to follow, but continued to scream. To this day, I can still hear that scream. It sounded like a low growl at first, then continued into a high-pitched shrill, becoming a long, sustained howling. It most likely wanted me to leave its territory, according to what I've read. It was probably hunting at night and was upset that I'd set up camp. This is the first time that I've shared the story of my encounter with this creature. I doubt if I'll ever go into the wilderness at night again. So while that was Virginia Bigfoot Scare, and that is just an example of the kind of stories that focus on, cryptozoology or the paranormal or supernatural, just straight up horror, that you can expect from Blackwater Media. And like I said, if you like that story, believe me when I tell you, it's only getting better. One of the things I'm very excited about is the overall variety of stories that are coming down the pipeline. Now, we've had stories before, Bigfoot, dogman. We've had demon stories, and that's, by the way, one of the newer stories that will be coming, which will there'll be 2 stories I'm thinking of that will most likely be premium content material. There's one called The Exorcist's Son, which is an absolutely horrifying, mad, crazy, insane, lunatic story. I mean, it is insane, and it is scary as hell. There's another story that I have not assigned a title to yet, but it's another one of these stories involving demonic oppression, demonic infestation, the dangers of dabbling into these dark powers, and the subsequent horror that can just run amok in your life. So those are like 2 demonic stories of demonic influence, demonic attack. And they are coming out of the writing phase. Those 2 stories are kind of out of the writing phase, and they are going to, be put through the recording phase, of course, where I narrated and drop in some music and some great sound effects. And but these are 2 that are really going to, I think, hit the ball out of the park. So what else is going on? We're starting this migration off of YouTube, developing the Blackwater Media site. Oh, I know what I was going to. Again, I didn't think of it last week. If you go to the Blackwater Media Facebook page, of course, you can keep up with a lot of this information because generally things get posted there daily. And it'll certainly be critical for Swamp Hunters, Blackwater Media Swamp Hunters Society members to look at that Facebook page in conjunction to the website that's coming up. But there will be announcements. There will be previews. We'll preview things on the Facebook page. All of these type of things. But what I was going to say is that there's notifications up there right now where I'm requesting your stories. I want to hear your real life encounters with the paranormal. I want to hear your stories. Now, I'm not interested in, nonsense and, these type of things that people tell you. I've been in situations where people carry you through this long chapter and verse thing, and they end up saying, "Oh, well, maybe it was a dream." Not interested. But if you've had a real encounter with the unexplained, with the supernatural, something that you can't explain, it can even be a UFO story. I don't want any of these stories about lights in the sky. I don't want any stories about, oh, I saw something, half a mile away and I don't know what it was. It was dark and it looked weird. I don't want those stories. Those are not encounters. Those are, I really wish my life was more interesting type things. But if you've had an actual encounter, unambiguous encounter, tell me about it. And you can reach out to me through the Blackwater Media Facebook page. Just drop me a line and give me some good contact information. Give me a brief statement about, what it's all about. And, we'll connect and see if it's something that is viable for Blackwater Media. So let me play one more story for you, which I hope that you will like. And again, an example of what you can expect as a Swamp Hunters Society premium content member. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what you can expect. Now, this is certainly from about a year and a half ago. And this is Dogman Terror 6. So buckle in. My story begins in the city of Atlanta. The date, October 1965. It was a Friday, and I had taken the day off work to drive down to Savannah to spend a long weekend with friends. There would be football games, music, and all of the barbecue and highballs that I could work in. I left home about 2 hours before dawn so as to be well out of town before any morning traffic started up. In what seemed like almost no time at all, I had gotten way down Interstate 75 below Macon. I could just see the faint indication of dawn approaching. I was making great time. There were lots of little towns and farms sprinkled here and there as I drove south, but mostly there were long stretches of nothing, with trees on both sides of the highway as far as I could see. It was in one of these areas, an isolated 30-mile run of highway, that I saw something that could not possibly exist. But I saw it with my own two eyes, and could swear to everyone within the sound of my voice that it does exist. 50 yards ahead, on the right edge of the highway, stood what I can only call a two-legged wolf. It had dark brown fur and ears like a German shepherd. It stood there next to a 3-foot highway marker, so I estimated it to be easily 7 feet tall. The creature walked out onto the highway and stopped in the middle. I hit the brakes, and when my car came to a complete stop, our eyes locked for a moment. It raised its snout into the air as if catching a scent, and then went into a full run across the highway into an endless ocean of pine trees. As it disappeared, I heard a series of terrifying howls echoing through the early morning air. Stunned, even shocked, I turned the music up on my radio and continued on my journey. I have never spoken of this encounter, and after this, I will never speak about it again. I have lived with the horror of those brief moments all these years, and the understanding that monsters are real. So yeah, that was Dogman Terror 6. So that's, like I said, at least maybe a year and a half ago. And let me tell you something. I've done that drive between Atlanta and Savannah, or to Savannah. I have done that drive. And of all the places where you can encounter a dogman, that's just not the situation that you want at all, because I've told people this before. You get down there, way down the highway down there, and you can look to your left, and as far as you can see, there are trees. Then you can look to your right, and there's nothing but trees as far as you can see. You can look straight ahead, and there is nothing but road as far as you can see. And that is absolutely not the place where you want to encounter a dog. You don't want to encounter a dog man anywhere. But if you had a choice, that stretch of highway that's being described in that story is absolutely not one of them. Anyway, so that is an example of the kind of material that's going to be coming forth from Blackwater Media. If you like that story, if you like Virginia Bigfoot Scare, those are just the tip of the iceberg in terms of how good it gets. Well, you know, the sound quality, the story elements, the suspense, the terror. And let me tell you something, a little something about sound effects too, because I spend a lot of time just kind of looking at these, listening to many samples. Every time I do a story, I listen to samples of different types of sound effects, whether it's breaking glass or the sound of a car taking off or the sound of gunfire or the sound of water, what have you. I spend a lot of time like comparing, like if I need breaking glass, well, is that a mirror or is it a wine glass or a window breaking? And or you know, things like that. Or if I need a water sound, is it a big splash? Is it like the sound of a little creek or brook kind of, you know, trickling along? Or does it sound like rainfall? And I go through all of these things, and I might, like, if I'm looking for, like I said, the sound of glass breaking, and I know, well, this is going to be the sound of a window breaking, I might listen to 10 different examples of window glass breaking sound effects before I find the one that even sounds real enough and to meet the quality standard for the story. So these are just some of the little things that go into the production. There's also the music, which I use as a kind of quiet background atmospheric building mechanism. Every now and then it'll jump up and grab you in an intense part of the story where the suspense and the terror are really kind of peaking. So there you have it, folks. That's what's going on this week with Blackwater Media. I want to absolutely thank the people who continue to subscribe on YouTube, and I don't want to discourage that at all, because like I said last week, there will be material. There will be Blackwater Media material on YouTube going forward, free content, and we never want to abandon those YouTube supporters, those YouTube subscribers who absolutely were instrumental in getting Blackwater Media to this point. So I'm going to get out of here and enjoy some baseball and start concocting maybe a martini or something to get the Saturday started. Crank up the stereo. And hey, I'm Dr. William Lester, and I'll see you next time on Swamp Chat.